You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. It is a Ferg Friday as we are joined by Justin Ferguson with the Auburn Observer. And at the time of us recording this, Jay Ferg, more and more speculation and conversation is circling around. Is Derek Mason, is there a chance that he could leave his post as Auburn's defensive coordinator? And it seems like there's a lot of places that have had job openings and that he is tied to those specific jobs.
Yeah, the big one being Oklahoma State coming open, and that would be a real fascinating move for a number of reasons. Oklahoma State, right out in front, Oklahoma State had a great year this year. They were close to winning the national title, had an awesome defense, and their defensive coordinator went to Ohio State, which was a big promotion. But to be in a spot where, a sitting SEC defensive coordinator would leave the conference to go to what is about to be a weaker Big 12 in the near future, not really necessarily seeing that Oklahoma State's going to be, primed for that same level of success in 2022. Not a great sign. There's not very much room to sugarcoat that one. But yeah, this was.
What do you think? What do you think goes into that decision, Justin? Do you think is he unhappy? Is the writing on the wall? I mean, what do you think that means?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. I think the main one is it doesn't seem like Mason and Harsin are necessarily on the same page moving forward. And I think that, however that comes out, right? Whether it's a staffing thing or a recruiting thing or philosophy, or, it's to walk away from a job like this for Oklahoma State or another program like that is, the Brian Harsin move, when he was hired, everybody knew it was going to be a build, right?
Yeah.
You're buying in. It's going to be a process. It's not going to be an instant thing. And so for people, for a well-respected defensive coordinator like Derek Mason to leave early in the process, it calls into question, at the very least, okay, what's going on with the build? Are people, all on the same page and buying into it? So, I'm not going to sit here and speculate of what, Derek Mason's, motivations are for potentially moving. I would be uncomfortable doing that unless I talk to the man directly, and I'm not going to talk to the man directly about anything like this. But there are well-connected and well-trusted reporters that are saying, there's some discord at the I guess that's the nicest probably way to put it, among staff right now. And this is not even a situation like where Nick Eason goes back home to Clemson, right? It's not even a situation like some people have talked about where Derek Mason, if Derek Mason left Auburn to go to the NFL, okay, that one, it's tough. It stings. It's something.
But it's not a lateral move in that case. You can easily make the argument of, okay, you go to the NFL, you don't have to worry about roster management or recruiting. You just get to coach football.
You get to coach ball, yeah.
Right.
And so a lot of people were surprised by it Wednesday night. I think, came out. I said this on our premium pod on Thursday. I was told by a couple of people earlier in the week that Derek might not be around for the season, and it didn't have any specifics of a specific school or very, very light on details. But when the news broke Wednesday night, didn't take me by surprise because it was oh, okay, so this is there's some real smoke behind this.
Yeah, right.
So
Oklahoma State's the big one, and then I've seen a few things today about Miami's DC being open and he being tied to that as well.
And Miami, at the very least, would be. I think Miami would at least be a little bit more of a understandable move than Oklahoma State. And no shade to Oklahoma State. They were a great football team this year, and they had an awesome defense. Miami, though, at least you could be okay, well, maybe you're in a better position, a better recruiting area. Even still, though, it's one of those things where you're leaving one build for another. And it's all right, well, why do you leave that build 1 year in? It's just not a great sign. And I think anybody can say it would be a big blow for Auburn if Derek Mason ended up moving on as defense coordinator.
Do you think if this move happens, Jay Ferg, any of it has to do with Jeff Schmedding kind of being the DC in waiting. And that's kind of been seen as the thing since Harsin hired him.
I'll be interested to see what Harsin does if that is the move. I think if Schmedding ends up becoming the defensive coordinator, it's going to be like another situation where Harsin has one of his guys step up. And I know, I know the case of Austin Davis is a different example, obviously, but then the Key South situation, all that, it's like it definitely will optics wise not be a situation where if people are thinking that Harsin's leaning towards his guys, that's something you could definitely say about a move like that. I don't know though. I would not be surprised if Derek Mason moved on, that Auburn would look elsewhere at least. And it's taken them a while, I think, for defensive line coach. I think what may be happening with Mason might have something to do with that as well. Some of that timeline. Yeah, you could say why Auburn hasn't had pulled the trigger on anybody yet.
Yeah, that would be interesting. A lot of folks waiting to see what happened with the Cardinals. They lost several days ago and nothing's happened there. So interesting situation to say the least. But if Auburn does lose Derek Mason and then Harsin goes with another one of his dudes, optically, you're right. There's going to be a lot of people asking questions.
Yeah,
if you're
have to work.
It's got to work. It's got to work, and it has to work now. It can't work in 2023. It has to work in 2022. And I think that's kind of the hole that Harsin has put himself in this current moment, where it's like it's always been about 2023. I'm going to say that a million times over this offseason, but he has to get to 2023. Yeah. And going 6 and 7, I don't know if you get there.
Yeah, the thing about it is that year one, you're supposed to show proof of concept. And Auburn took a step back, and there were reasons why they took a step back this past. The Bo Nix injury really. The way Auburn's defense played, I think we all could say if Bo Nix was healthy for the Iron Bowl, they probably win that game. I think that's very fair. Probably South Carolina's so. There's some of that where you can say, "Oh man, QB1 was down," and
you can put Mississippi State in there too. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, QB1 is down, and you don't have. So there's some of that you have to take with a grain of salt, right? But if you're going into year two, you have to show progress. You have to show improvement. And on offense, you're rebuilding for the most part at several positions. And then on defense, the side of the ball that won you some games last season, kept you in some other ones that you lost close, it changes. And I mean, I said this on our podcast as well. If Derek Mason could walk out the door and Auburn could go get the best defensive coordinator possible, Brian Harsin could swing for the fences and get a grand slam hire, and it's still going to be a change. It's still going to be a transition. It's still going to be tough, right? So that's where all of this kind of comes to. Continuity and consistency, even in the portal era, means a ton, and Auburn does not have a lot of that right now. And some of that is going to come naturally with just the way things are in college football and the way things are with this staff and the way they want to run this program. But you don't want too much of it. And to have a guy like Mason, who is such a good defensive coordinator, who is respected in the league, who has, close ties to the conference, that would be a brutal blow for Auburn. Not impossible to overcome by any means. It just makes the degree of difficulty for 2022 just keeps going up in that case.
Totally. Right. And Derek Mason and his defense going into the second year with his scheme it's really been like the selling point for me as far as, talking yourself into, okay, can Auburn go 8-4 in 2022? It's like the defense could take a massive step. I think we saw proof of that towards the end of 2021. Obviously, it came to a head in the Iron Bowl where it's like, okay, these guys can play. These guys have bought into what he needs them to do. And if you have to start the whole process over again, that's tough.
It's tough.
Really tough.
It's not impossible, but there's a lot of things that got to go well for Auburn, and it's going to take a lot of hard work. And that's the other thing too, is it's like we've said it before. Brian Harsin knows that. He's not shying away from that.
Yeah. Sure.
But there's if you're going to do things this way as a program, it better click and it better work. And I think the disappointment of the losing streak at the end of the season, some of the shifting sands at leadership, and I'm talking about at the university level at Auburn. I mean, there's going to be even more pressure to take a step forward. And there's been a lot of moves and a lot of things that have happened in the last couple of months that you look at and say, okay, that gets harder. That gets harder for Auburn instead of
Are you referring to Auburn finding its new president, or are you talking more
yes.
about Alan Green?
Yeah, no, I'm talking more about talking more about the president. Yeah, this is not anything specifically about Alan Green and his future. I mean, I don't think there's nothing new that seems to be developing on that front, at least from what I've heard. But it's just there's going to be pressure, and especially it looks like the next president is going to be a guy who is an Auburn person through and through, and
the dean of the engineering school, right?
Yeah,
he's the favorite.
Yes, and seems like he's kind of the only candidate right now. And he's a guy that, from what I've heard, is not only an Auburn dude through and through, but also someone who is very supportive and very interested in Auburn athletics. And so there's something to that as well. It's the timing of all that's going to make things really interesting.
It can't be worse than the last time we did this. It can't.
Yeah.
It can't be worse than Stephen
and
Lee.
Jay Gouge needs a statue built for him for like coming back and trying to
he did not need to do this. He has done enough, and he's like, okay, all right, Auburn needs me for a few
I got to clean this up. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jay Gouge. And we'll have a performing arts center named in your stead. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. It's a Ferg Friday. Justin Ferguson, our guest. This is it. The putt to win the tournament. If you sink it, the championship is yours. But on your backswing, your hat falls over your eyes. Is this how you're running your business? Poor visibility because you're still relying on spreadsheets and outdated finance software. To see the full picture, you need to upgrade to NetSuite by Oracle. Over 28,000 businesses already use NetSuite. For the new year, NetSuite has offered a new financing program for those ready to upgrade at netsuite.com/locked. That is netsuite.com/locked. Ferg Friday, Justin Ferguson, Auburn Observer. If folks are not signed up to the Auburn Observer, what all are they missing out on?
A lot of basketball these days. Really big mailbag came out this morning. A lot of football and basketball in there. But there's been a ton of basketball. We've had a lot of people sign up over the last couple of weeks just from the excitement surrounding Auburn hoops, which is a lot of fun to see because I love writing about Auburn football, obviously, and that one pays the bills most of the time. But when your basketball team is this good, and it's a sport that it comes a lot more naturally for me to write about. So it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, you get a newsletter or a podcast pretty much every day of the week. And we send it straight to your email inbox, auburnobserver.com. A lot of analysis, film rooms, like I said, mailbags, deep dives into stats. And a lot of stuff that hopefully you can't get anywhere else, at least the way we do it, at least the kind of spin that we put on it. So auburnobserver.com, sign up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Worth every single penny. So yeah, it's interesting because for years when, folks have been joking like that Auburn is a basketball school. I don't think it's really a joke anymore because we've talked about this before. I think in front of microphones where it's like, Auburn fans will pay attention to the games. They'll be super active like during the basketball games, but they're not clicking on stories and they're not, listening to like basketball themed shows, but you're starting to see that shift now, or at least changed. I am. Yeah. Yes. And your audience is a little bit different. Your audience is a little more hardcore and zoomed in on, the two major sports, but as a whole, you're seeing that shift where people are finally, clicking and putting an interest, on a Saturday game on like a Thursday evening, which is exciting.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, it's obvious when you see the line and the sellout crowd for a Wednesday night game against a team that was a 21.5 point dog.
They're terrible. They're a terrible basketball team.
I walked out of that game being like, oh, Auburn holding them to 60 was kind of impressive because like they can score, but man, they have no defensive talent. Like they look like
Auburn didn't really shoot that well either.
No, they didn't. But they got whatever they wanted. Like there was over and over again, they just hammered them. Yeah. But yeah, it's just the excitement level is there, and it's not just the Kentucky game anymore, which is going to be, an event unto itself this weekend. Crazy. But it's like this every game now. And when your team is one of the best in the country and has a legitimate chance to win the national title, that's where a lot of people are going to put their attention at right now. And if that's you, come on over. We got plenty of Auburn basketball.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I used to be hesitant to put Auburn basketball in my titles for my shows because they would get like half of the engagement, but not anymore. Not anymore. They stick with it. It's awesome. Very, very fun. So, I still want to talk football just for a second. We'll talk basketball to wrap things up. But right now, with the transfers that have come in this week, specifically Robbie Ashford, what do you make of the quarterback situation now that he's here? Does it change anything in your mind?
No, because I think even before Robbie Ashford showed up, it was going to be a situation where it was going to be a wide open battle in the spring. I think both Calzada and TJ Finley have this. They both were guys that came in kind of similar situations. Calzada's got a little bit more experience. Calzada's got a little, better deep ball numbers. He's got that big win over Alabama.
Right.
But, they weren't QB1 at their school to start with. And Auburn is trying to, make one out of either of those guys. I think Demetrius Davis, with new eyes on him at offensive coordinator, a new quarterbacks coach, and a chance where he's not having to compete against a guy like Bo Nix.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy that can. Holden Gerner. Sorry, I keep mispronouncing it.
Is it Gerner?
It's Gerner, and I've said it wrong for almost a year now, and I feel bad. But
Gerner. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for saying that.
Because somebody asked me about that in the mailbag, and I was like, I had to go look this up. So I watched like 10 YouTube videos where I just heard people say his name. So I was like, all right, let's get this thing started.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
He's a great fit for this offense. I mean, he is the, quarterback that Brian Harsin and his staff wanted to bring in for this offense. I think he's going to have a shot. Now, I don't think he's going to be the favorite by any means, but he's going to have a shot.
Mm-hmm.
I think Robbie Ashford's kind of in the ssame boat, just has a little bit more experience in the fact that he has been on a college roster the last couple of years, but we have not seen him play at the college level. He had some injuries in high school as well. It's just like, all right, we've got these 5 dudes that all have different kind of skill sets and different kind of experience levels. None of them are the guy. None of them are like locked down. This is QB1. Yeah. We can kind of predict, but when you have that, it's just going to be like, hey, what fits best? What fits best with the guys around them? What fits best with our offensive line, with our wide receivers? Which of these skill sets is going to separate itself? Which one of these players is going to separate itself? So when Robbie Ashford comes in there, it's like maybe it just wasn't ever going to click at Oregon, but it's going to click here. You could say the same thing about Calzada. You could say the same thing about Finley. You could say the same thing about Demetrius Davis with a new offensive coordinator. And maybe Gerner can be the guy that shocks everyone. It doesn't change that much. It just gives you another piece because I don't think Auburn's in a position where they can turn down any guys that have talent or interest in the position.
Are all of them participating in spring? Somebody commented on the YouTube show a few days ago that Calzada was not. Is that right?
Calzada's on campus. He was at the basketball game Wednesday night.
And I know he had like a shoulder injury. Like, is he not able to participate because of health? I haven't seen that anywhere else.
I have no, deep inside information on that. Okay. And also I know that Robbie Ashford, part of the reason why they, you get a guy like him now is because he had to get in before that deadline where it's like, hey, you've got to transfer in if you're going to want to be, around for spring ball. So,
right.
We'll see how that plays into. And those guys are signed at this point. So it's going to be wide open, and there's going to be movement, and I think it's going to be one of those times where you can make a case for pretty much everybody to be the guy, and it's going to take a lot of development. It's going to take a lot of hard work from the staff to get this quarterback room into the position it needs to be to compete in the fall. But that's why you go get a guy from the NFL.
The guys that I have the hardest time making a case for are D. Davis and Holden Gerner.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I don't think you go out and get 2 transfer guys if you think, the true freshman has a chance. And then Davis, you just don't hear anything about him from the coaching staff, or you talk to former players and they just don't talk about him. So, yeah, I think it's one of the transfers or Finley.
Yeah, I think that's a safe thing, and I think that D. Davis has a ton of talent. I think Gerner's got a lot of talent as well. But it's like you said, you kind of recruited over their heads a little bit in the portal, and some of it's just get depth, get backfill, do what you need to do, and open it up and let these guys compete. But also, it's not a sign that any of these guys, they feel like, or, oh yeah, that's definitely our dude right away. We just need more time. It's like, oh, maybe he could be the guy, but we're going to put some other dudes in there to see if who comes out on top.
Let me put you on the spot here. Rank them 1 through 5 on the depth chart, assuming no one transfers, assuming everybody stays put.
Yeah.
Predict the depth chart going into 2022 at the quarterback spot.
I'll go Calzada, Finley. I go back and forth between Davis and Ashford at 3. It could go either way, and I have Garner at 5 just because he's the youngest. No disrespect to any of these dudes and their talent levels. I just think.
I think that's what I said too. I think that's what I said earlier in the week.
Yeah,
I said I put Ashford at 3. I think,
and that makes sense. And that makes sense. I'm just.
I think Davis transfers this offseason.
We'll see. We'll see. There's going to be movement at some point at that quarterback room. I don't think Auburn comes into the fall with 5 quarterbacks.
Yeah, and it could be Finley may just transfer and take the year hit if he looks at 2022 and is like, okay, if spring's done, he's like, I'm not going to play at Auburn in 2022, so I might as well just sit the year out or whatever if that happens.
I'm the guy though that I still am a believer in Demetrius Davis just because when I watch him, the few times I've gotten to watch him in practice, stuff like that, it's like, man, he's got something about him,
man. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so. And I just the thing with Robbie Ashford is like we have not seen him play in college, and it's been when he was at Hoover, he did have some injury issues that kept him from playing like these full complete seasons with him. But he was really good when he did, and obviously was a blue chip quarterback.
Right. Do you know if he's playing baseball here? I messaged my contact with the baseball team, and he's like, I haven't been told anything.
I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. He was an awesome baseball player in high school, and he
I think Auburn's fine at outfielder, but if I'm Butch Thompson and it doesn't count as a scholarship towards the baseball team, why not?
Yeah, it's like the thing with John Samuel Shanker. It's like it's good to have, and dadgum, he's athletic. I say him and Shanker. It's like those guys are going to bring. They're in good shape. You would say at the very least.
Yeah, they're conditioned by the time the season starts. There's no question about it. Hey, Betonline wants to wish everyone a happy new betting year as we get things going early 2022. Lots of sport action happening with the NFL playoffs. The NBA is heating up. Would say baseball is not too far away, but they're still in a lockout. But betonline.ag has you covered with all of your sports betting. Of course, college basketball is the way to go there as well. When you sign up for your free account and then make your first deposit, use promo code LOCKEDON. You get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Justin Ferguson is Auburn basketball's opponent. Their matchup tomorrow against the Kentucky Wildcats. This is their biggest task of the season so far. Right? I mean, with the way Kentucky is playing right now, you can make the case that they're the hottest team in the conference, even though Auburn has a better record. Yeah,
they're coming off of a stretch here where they had to grind it out to beat A&M on Wednesday night, and A&M took their first SEC loss, which helps Auburn and helps obviously Kentucky.
A&M just had such a strong first 10 minutes, but the last 30 minutes of the game, Kentucky was significantly better.
Yeah, and they took a Tennessee defense and threw them into the wood chipper. A really good Tennessee defense as well. So Kentucky's playing awesome basketball year in and year out. They're going to be one of the most talented teams in the country. They're always the most talented team in the SEC. This is a team that is playing more like Bruce Pearl said it on Thursday, playing more like the Calipari teams of old. They play fast. Oscar Tshiebwe is just he's got numbers right now that are unreal. One of the best rebounders we've seen in college basketball, period. He leads the nation in offensive rebounding percentage and defensive rebounding percentage. He just gobbles up everything in his path, and he's a good rim runner, good defender, and he hits shots for him. So Ty Washington's on a tear right now. He's a great scoring guard. Severe Wheeler is capable of putting up double-digit assists every night. They've got, as always that you see with Kentucky, they have long athletic wings and guards around these guys that are going to that are going to be playing in the NBA very, very soon.
Yeah.
So yes, this is the toughest test. It feels like the last month Kentucky's kind of figured a lot of things out. I know they lost that game to LSU on the road, and that was a tough finish for them. But yeah, this is the toughest team they're going to play for the rest of the season. I know Alabama's great, and I know Tennessee is great as well. But like Auburn, Kentucky's moved past that at this point. They've already played LSU, so this is an excellent basketball team coming into the arena on Saturday.
Yeah, in a neutral site, Jay Ferg, I'd probably pick Kentucky, but Auburn at home, it's just hard. It's just hard to see them losing at home right now.
Yeah, Kentucky's playing excellent offense as of late. Auburn's playing excellent defense as of late. And then on the flip side, this is a Kentucky team that has the size to hang. They do have the size. The one thing I'm interested in seeing in this game, though, is on the road. What does Kentucky do? They played a tough, grinded out, ugly-ish kind of game against Texas A&M on the road. They beat Vanderbilt by 12 on the road, but they lost to LSU, like I said earlier. They lost to Notre Dame, and then until they played North Carolina. So far this season, in true away games, they're 2-2. They were 1-1 in neutral site games. Like, this team doesn't have a ton of experience away from Rupp Arena. So I'm interested to see what they do, because there's a lot of new faces on this team, at least new faces with Kentucky. How do they handle that environment? How do they handle Auburn's crowd being out for blood from the opening tip?
Are you reading that, or do you just have all that in your noggin?
I'm looking it up right now. I got the second screen go. No, it's a joke that I've had a while. It's like, and Kentucky leaves Rupp, look out. Like, then they lost to Duke. They hammered a bad, I say bad for usual standards, North Carolina team.
Yeah.
And then they've kind of split away from that. So yeah, what do they look like away from Rupp? They have not been awesome away from Rupp this season, and this is going to be the toughest test they have in terms of home court advantage.
Right. No, it's going to be fascinating. It'll be a great game, no doubt about it. Justin, you will have the coverage of this matchup better than anyone. How can folks sign up and make sure they don't miss anything?
Yeah, auburnobserver.com. $6 a month or $60 a year get you in, and you'll get access to all of our newsletters and our podcast, and they get sent straight to your email inbox pretty much every day of the week.
Awesome. Justin, thank you so much for your time as always, man. Talk to you soon.
See you guys.
Cool. Hey, we'll be back on Monday to recap what could be a crazy weekend in Auburn sports right here on Locked On Auburn.